Hello, I'm Steve Muzzy, Senior Manager of Climate Programs at Second Nature. Welcome to the webinar, Powersuite, Learn How Campuses Can Engage in Key State and Energy Policies. Today we will hear representatives from the Advanced Energy Economy and Duke University. Much of today's discussion will focus on Powersuite, the Advanced Energy Economy software that tracks legislative and regulatory policy in all 50 states. We'll also hear about Duke's Science Policy Tracking Program, AEE's Advanced Energy Buyers Group, and finally how the Climate Leadership Commitment signatories helped support an energy efficiency program in Pennsylvania. Second Nature and the Advanced Energy Economy have formally partnered to support campuses in energy-related policy efforts, and today's webinar is our first step to provide an overview on how that can be done. So today's presenters are Eric Fitz. He's President of Engineering and Product Development at AEE. We'll then hear from Alexa Sutton-Lawrence from Duke University's Science Policy Tracking Program. We'll then move back to Advanced Energy Economy and Caitlin Marquis, the Manager of Federal and State Policy. And we'll end with Daniel Bloom, Associate of State Policy, and the effort in the state of Pennsylvania. So we do have a lot of information to cover today. We hope to be able to leave time for questions, and you can submit them at any time by using the GoToMeeting control panel, or sorry, GoToWebinar control panel. And let's get, and before we get started, finally, just a quick thank you to our corporate sponsors who support us and signatories in advancing climate action. So with that, let's turn it over to Eric and hear about Powersuite.
Thanks, Steve. Just wait for a moment to get control of the slides. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for joining today. I'm excited to take you through our software platform, Powersuite, and talk through actually a number of examples of how you could use our platform for covering a range of policy issues. But we'll talk specifically about some examples that are connected to getting access to renewable energy. Just briefly, I'm going to give a little bit of background on our organization. We'll talk about the high level of Powersuite, what this platform is all about, and spend some time doing some live examples. As Steve already mentioned, we'll then hand off to Alexa to talk a bit about Duke's Siple initiative. Caitlin is going to then cover some of the work we've been doing with our Advanced Energy Buyers Group, and Daniel's going to talk a bit about some work we've done in Pennsylvania with Second Nature. And we'll definitely save some time for question and answer. So just really quickly, a little bit about Advanced Energy Economy. We are a business association that's focused on building a world that runs on secure, clean, and affordable energy. And the way we do that is through changing policy. We're focused on state and federal issues that allow us to help the industry open up markets on the various technologies, business models that we're focused on. So, what is advanced energy? It really ranges from the supply side of the energy system to the demand side, from things like traditional power generation like wind and solar, to energy efficiency, energy storage, even things like transportation with electric vehicles. So a whole range of technologies and topics. It's a pretty broad umbrella, but that's what we mean by advanced energy. So switching gears to talk a bit about Powersuite, I think it's helpful to understand who some of our users are, who some of our customers are. I wanted to focus first on our academic users, but we have many other nonprofit institutions as well as for-profit businesses that are using our platform. So these are just some of the institutions that are using our platform for a number of purposes. And just thought it's helpful to have that text. So in addition to the academic and nonprofit organizations, we've got a range of additional large businesses, companies like Microsoft, to technology companies like GE and that are building the hardware and software that runs utilities, as well as a whole range of additional companies from across the spectrum, from OEM car manufacturers like Mercedes and Honda to companies like Comcast, who are very interested in home automation systems. So a little bit more about Powersuite. So I think it's helpful to understand some of the core problems that really why we built this platform, and to connect it to some of the solutions that we provide. So one of the biggest challenges around energy policy is much of the information is hidden behind essentially unusable government websites. Whether that's legislative or regulatory government agencies, many of them don't even have a search engine. You have to know the bill number or docket number off the top of your head to find what you're looking for. You essentially have to be an expert in order to find the information. It really makes it a challenge. We all have limited time and resources, both for the process of identifying, discovering, finding what's relevant to your organization, let alone actually tracking it. So both of those activities, the discovery process and then tracking developments, are very time intensive. In addition, you might be familiar with a particular issue in your particular state, but you might want to better understand an emerging policy development in another state that you're less familiar with. That can take a lot of time to get up to speed to read through those thousands of pages of filings or many amendments on a given bill. And then finally, if you multiply this across the entire country, all 50 states, you've got 50 state legislatures, 50 regulatory bodies, US Congress, FERC. It's just an absolute fire hose of information to keep track of. So we built Powersuite to take on those challenges. And at the highest level, Powersuite's designed to allow any organization, any business to identify and manage energy policy risks and opportunities, really however you define them. And the most basic way that we do that is by aggregating the information into one place. So we have an automated process that collects both legislative and regulatory issues from the entire country. At this point, we have over 1 million pieces of legislation in our database, going back to the 2009-2010 legislative sessions. So that's from all 50 states and US Congress. On the regulatory side, we collect anything that's electronically filed from any of the state public utility commissions, the PUCs, as well as the federal equivalent, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We have over 80 million pages of filings on regulatory issues. And that's for all types of what are called regulated utilities. So it's electricity, natural gas, transportation, telecommunications, so on and so forth. And then finally, we have state profiles for the entire country to give you sort of the quick context about a particular state you might be less familiar with. So what are the key policies, for example, renewable energy portfolio standards or energy efficiency resource standards? What are the major utilities? What's some historical energy pricing data or energy mix data? It's a great place to go to get started before you dive into specific policy details. So the simplest way to describe us is we're a database that collects legislative and regulatory, state and federal information all in one place. But the outcomes that really motivate us and really why we built the platform are around accelerating business. So that's the advanced energy industry, the advanced energy economy, but also absolutely empowering advocates, and that's all about enabling change. We really want to change this system so that we have a secure, clean, and affordable future. So there's a number of different use cases. I'm just going to show a couple of examples. The first one is what we think of as sort of traditional government affairs. It's this process of sort of day-to-day, identifying relevant policy information that you care about and then tracking it. But there's a number of other advocacy opportunities as well as policy research. So just very quickly, some of the biggest features in our platform, and then I'll switch to the live examples. So unlike a lot of those source government agencies, you can just use normal keywords to search for information in our platform. A lot of our users think of us as the Google for energy policy issues. So you can search for energy storage, you can search for rooftop solar, and find what you're looking for. So you can very easily do a broad search or focus on something pretty specific that you care about. Once you've found something that looks interesting, it's super easy to track. You can add any bill or regulatory issue, or refer to as a docket, to your personal tracking list using favorites. So you can, just with a quick little click, it'll be added to your personal tracking list. You'll get automatic notifications when something's changed. So if a bill is moving from one chamber to the next, there's an action or an important new filing on a regulatory issue. You can also create your own customized alerts that allow you to get notified about any topic. So, if you want to know come January, when all the legislative sessions start up again, when there's any bill in the country that mentions solar or renewable energy or energy storage, you can define your own search alert and get notified about that new bill being introduced. Same thing on the regulatory side. When you get into the details, we provide our own expert policy analysis on both regulatory and legislative issues, so that when you're looking at a particular bill, when you're looking at a particular docket, you can quickly understand at a high level what the issue is all about. It can save you a ton of time and really confirm that you're looking at the right thing. We have a number of features that allow you to discover other new topics you might not be aware of with trending policy. And we also give all of our users a sort of a private space for collaboration, so you can add your own private summaries and comments on about a particular issue right next to the latest information in the source. And then finally, if you are a paying customer, we also have a feature that allows us to predict the outcome of legislation. We have our own proprietary machine learning model that allows us to forecast the likelihood that a bill will be signed into law. In the 2016 legislative sessions, we had an accuracy of 87%. So the forecasting is really useful for focusing your efforts. So if you're seeing that a bill has a very unlikely chance of being passed, maybe you're not going to bother following it and focus on other issues. All right, so I'm going to switch gears and jump over just to show you a few live examples. And I'll remind folks, feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation to the using the GoToWebinar question tool. So just really quickly, before I even get started, you can go to powersuite.awe.net and just click the register button that you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, or start the free trial button, and you can get access right away. And I'm going to jump in and just show you some examples within our regulatory portion of our platform and our legislative side of our platform. So like I said, you can search by keywords. So if I just want to see everything across the country on the regulatory side of policy that mentions solar, I can do that. I'm going to limit the results to anything since July of this year. And I'll just search across the entire country. I can definitely narrow to particular states, but here are all the regulatory issues that mention solar in the US. There's actually over 7,000 dockets. This is a pretty broad search. So if I narrow it down and say, let's look for, energy storage and solar. Again, here's a quick heat map of the results, and I can see all of the regulatory issues down below. So very quick and easy to find information that you're looking for. You can further refine and really help you more quickly discover probably the most relevant information, particularly if you're getting into policy for the first time, by limiting your results to what's trending in our platform. So you'll see a number of these examples have this little blue arrow. That means it's trending. It's just like social media trending, but for energy policy issues. You can also see examples where our logo appears. That means we have analysis available to help you understand what the issue is all about. So, it's great that I found over 800 regulatory issues across the country that are related to solar and energy storage, but I can quickly narrow that down even further and say, let's just limit it to what's currently trending. And now we're down to just over 250 issues across the country. You notice that all the results are now trending, and I can open up this top result. I can see all the information that's coming in from the source regulatory body. Here's an example of our quick analysis and some updates that we've provided. I can flip over to my private space where I can add my own private comments that I can share with the rest of my team. I can track this really easily just with this little star. I can favorite it and it'll get added to my personal tracking list. Anything that I track will then get automatically sent to me if there's any changes directly to my inbox. So this is an example email that I got this morning. I'm personally tracking several hundred issues across the country. Here are the 24 that actually have changes. So it's really easy to stay up to date, stay on top of changes as they're occurring across the country. The summary is ordered based on state, grouped by state. So it's very easy to quickly browse and pull up any information that looks interesting, worth following up on. So I can click through on any of these and it'll take me to the specific filing in this case. So I can see all the details right in our platform. Just waiting for the internet to work. There we go. So here's a full copy of the filing itself. Regulatory issues can be pretty dense. They might have hundreds or even thousands of filings. So we give you the ability to search within the particular filings to find something particular. So in this example, if I wanted to see everything that Sunverge, a company, it looks like they're have made comments on this particular regulatory issue, I can search for their company name and see everything that they've been mentioned in. So now here are the 6 filings where Sunverge is mentioned. When I do a search in our platform, it's actually searching inside of all the kind of top level information, so the titles and filing parties and the type of these documents, but it's also looking inside of all of the PDFs and PowerPoint files and Excel spreadsheets that are attached as part of comment as well. So it's a true full text search engine, so you can really find the needle in the haystack. If I go back, so you can definitely use keyword searches to look for topics that you care about, but you can also just browse by topic. So we have a range of what we call watch list categories that allow you to focus on certain areas. So we actually have 3 subtopics just around this issue of access to advanced energy. So I can just pick these 3 topics and I will do a search just on those across the country. So here are all of the regulatory issues that we've identified that are related to access to advanced energy. So it makes it really easy just to browse by certain topics or issues as opposed to having to figure out how to use a search, a keyword search to find what you're looking for. You can, for research purposes, you can export any of this data you're seeing in the search results to a spreadsheet, so you can do your own custom analysis. It'll include all the data you see in these tables, our analysis, our trending scores, any comments that you've added to the system will be included with that export as well. So let's say you want to know anytime there's a new regulatory issue that is added to our system that has also been tagged by one of our policy staff as being connected to direct access or access to advanced energy in general. Well, all I have to do is turn on a search alert to get notified about that change. So after running any search, I can just use this little menu on the right-hand side, turn on a daily or weekly alert, and now our system will run this search for you automatically. And if we find any new matching results, we'll send them to you in a separate email. So with just a couple of clicks, this is your sort of radar, gives you visibility across the entire country with limited effort. So in addition to access to regulatory issues, we also have, as I mentioned at the very beginning, access to all legislative issues. All of the features I just described are available on the legislative side as well. I'll show you a couple of others that I haven't pointed out. If I just want to see what's currently trending across the entire country, we have a couple of shortcuts for some key areas. If I just click on this trending tab, here are the 160 trending bills across the country right now. So you can see they all have the trending score. And this is a really great way to kind of leverage our community of users and you discover new issues across the country that you might not otherwise be aware of. Within any of these shortcut tabs, you can filter further using any of the options we provided. So if I just wanted to see what's been signed into law in a particular state, I can do that as well. And for any of you that are interested in doing your own much deeper research, you really want to get your hands on the data itself. We actually have a number of researchers from MIT, from Stanford, from Berkeley that are using our API. So if you're a software developer, you know how to write some scripts, you can use our API. Just contact us and we can give you, access to the data itself. So you can write your own tools and do your own analysis of the raw data itself. All right, so with that, I'm gonna actually hand it over the discussion to Alexa.
Great.
And again, please feel free to submit questions as they come up.
Awesome. So I am Alexa Sutton-Lawrence, and I am the lead editor for energy policy in Duke University's Siple program. And so Siple is an initiative. I guess I will hang on a second.
Sorry, I got it.
No worries. So Siple is an initiative that's created and run jointly by the Duke Energy Initiative, which has the broad mission of advancing an affordable, reliable, and clean energy system through education, research, and engagement, and the Duke Initiative for Science and Society, which has the mission of examining the integral role of science in law, policy, social institutions, and culture. Siple actually has 5 areas on which we focus, but the energy vertical is what we'll be talking about today, as that is the area of most interest to all of us. Next slide. So within the energy vertical, which just means essentially our energy focused program, we're broadly looking at tracking and analyzing new developments in industry research and policy that are related to the US energy sector. We do that and come out with these sort of 6 key products. One of those, the policy tracking, is something that we do with the help of Powersuite. Powersuite is sort of our lead resource for doing a lot of the searching and tracking and keeping an eye on what's emerging, what's changing, how quickly things are changing, et cetera. And then the development briefs and analyses is really our sort of flagship or future product. We also have a news and opportunities weekly report, an engagement calendar, a science library, which is a new offering, and a job board. And overall, all of these things together are sort of feeding our fundamental mission, which is to take the intersection between science and policy as pertains to energy, look at it, look for trends, look for patterns, explain those trends and patterns, explain the underlying science. That's a big part of what we think about and do, and then present that to sort of interested and key audiences. And so we look for ways also for people to get engaged with the policy development process, and that's part of what you'll see in our engagement calendar and so forth. Next slide. So what we want to do with our policy tracking is really provide automated up-to-the-minute coverage of legislation and then some other things in the US energy sector. And that's where Powersuite becomes really, really essential for us. Next slide. In part because it's sort of the first thing, the first step in this process, getting us to these complex briefs and analyses, which is really our sort of value add to the world. So we look at the policy tracker, and we look at what is advancing through the legislature, through the states and so forth. And we create these little sort of first looks, which we present on our website. And if anyone would like to visit our website, it is Sipol, SCIPOL.org. And we create these first looks, and then those get expanded by a team of student writers that we have into briefs. And so when they expand those, they do much more sort of delving into the scientific underpinning, some of the conversations that are happening on the research side, conversations happening on the industry side, as well as the policy itself and its context. And then from that, we actually even have a next step of further analysis that is led by individual experts at Duke. So perhaps an expert is particularly interested in offshore drilling and wants to sort of lead a further analysis of what have the policy changes in the last 12 months been related to offshore drilling, what is a forecast for the future, and so forth. And so one of the reasons why having something like Powersuite is really helpful and useful for us is because we are not in the business of looking broadly at every piece of policy that comes out, but rather we really want to pick out the ones that are moving and the ones that are going to be really impactful. So we have these sort of broad coverage guidelines that let us focus on things that are enrolled, enacted, or finalized, but having those sort of trends and having a way of looking at what things are moving and how is really, really helpful to us. Next slide. So just a little bit more that I'll share about our briefs and our analyses and what those look like and how we do them. Next slide. As I said, we look at the policies, we track, we sort of favorite things, we follow specific ones that are getting a lot of coverage or getting a lot of traction. Once something has moved into a stage where we feel like it's ready to have a summary written about it, we do this. We create a sort of first look summary. Broad, executive, bird's eye view of what this policy is, what's happening, where it came from. And we link it to some of these relevant science sectors or modules that we have. So something that we realized as we started to do this work a lot was that we were oftentimes re-explaining the wheel. So we would have a lot of briefs where we were putting in these science sections, re-explaining how a nuclear thing. So next look summary, we now link to pre-existing science modules. Next. And then once we flesh it out to a full brief, we talk a lot more about the background and context, the policy history, et cetera. And then we get into contextualizing the relevant science modules. Why is an understanding of the geography of the outer continental shelf relevant to this executive order, and so forth. Then we get into the debate, and that's where we really start to look at the meat of not only the policy debate, but also the research debate. If there's disagreement about perhaps the impact of fracking on groundwater, what is the debate? How much uncertainty is there? Who are the scientists involved, and so forth. Next slide. So that is sort of our briefs. Our next value add is these news and opportunities. And that's another place where it helps for us to really stay on top of what's happening and what's moving through the legislature. So this is partially looking at sort of what's emerging in the news, but also where are opportunities for really interested folks from the energy sector, whether that's on the research side, if you're a professor in a university, if you are a government affairs person at a nonprofit, if you are a lobbyist, where are the opportunities for you to engage with policy in the upcoming week? And we sort of try to do that weekly we send that out weekly on Fridays. Next slide. And then we also present it in a calendar form on our website as a resource for people to come and look back at. So again, this is a place where having access to the kind of policy tracking that Powersuite's doing is very helpful for us. Next slide. This is our fifth resource, the science library, that I think I've referenced a little bit now, and that is just sort of a stacked up version of all of our standalone science modules. So that's something that we hope will be a resource all on its own for folks in the energy sector who perhaps are looking to explain or better understand certain pieces of policy. Next slide. Just a little bit more about the kinds of things that we cover. Within that science library, we cover both the physical sciences and engineering side, as well as the natural sciences. Those two are a little bit obvious, but we also try to focus on the social sciences as well, particularly the economics, the geography, often the sociology associated with particular aspects of energy, for example, energy access in different communities, energy usage and efficiency, and how that is tied to economics and so forth. And we create explanatory images, so infographics. Next slide. Last but not least, we also offer a job board. And so that is job specific to energy sector and working at the nexus of science and policy. So to give you guys a little bit of next slide, yeah, thanks. To give you guys a little bit of a sense of what this looks like. So we are actually in the midst of a complete website redesign. And so we are relaunching our website in the first quarter of next year. And we've got a really clear vision of how we want that to look and how we want to integrate Powersuite into that. So next slide. What we're envisioning is something a little bit like this. And so you can see how having the policy tracker, what we'd like to do is embed it as a widget on our site so that people are actually using Powersuite to look at what policies are present and what are moving and what their status is and so forth. And then next slide. And then be able to, from that, select the ones that we have written these more thorough Siple briefs about, that we've written further analysis about, et cetera. And you see that was our very first one that we published in Energy there at the bottom on Executive Order 13795. Next slide. And then also being able to link that to these science modules in the science library so that policy is sort of fully explained from the science side. And then next slide. Being able to focus it even more to particular sort of subtopics within energy. And that's something that Powersuite's also very helpful for and hopefully going to be able to help us do. So I think that is just about all from me over here on the Siple side. I will hand it back now to Eric.
All right, thanks. I'm going to now switch gears and I'll hand it off to Caitlin and my colleague Daniel. Caitlin's going to start off. Caitlin?
Thanks, Eric. I'm going to talk about really some sort of practical ways that I use Powersuite for my work, but hopefully it's the actual policy that I cover in some of the universities. I focus specifically on policy.
Hey, Caitlin, your audio is a little bit hard to hear. Are you feeling far with your phone?
Using headphones. Can you hear me?
There we go. That's much better. Yep.
Okay, let me know if it gets messed up again. Sorry about that. So I'm going to walk through some sort of practical ways that I use Powersuite, but hopefully on some relevant policies for the universities as well, because I focus on policies to expand opportunities for large energy customers. Specifically, we work with a lot of corporate purchasers, but of course, a lot of the barriers and the policy opportunities are the same for large corporates as for universities as energy purchasers. Of course, corporate demand for advanced energy and renewable energy has increased dramatically over recent years. I think the latest statistic I've seen is that 9 gigawatts of offsite projects have been built since 2012 for voluntary customers. But there certainly are a lot of challenges. I think some of these policy solutions probably also look familiar to the university. Some of the direct purchasing pathways like direct access, on-site PPAs, off-site PPAs, renewable energy tariffs, shared renewables, et cetera. Some of the policies that popped up when Eric was running through access to advanced energy on Powersuite. On the next slide, you will also see this is sort of how this work is organized within AEE. So we support policy engagement by the Advanced Energy Buyers Group, which is a business-led coalition of companies that are engaging on policies like the ones that I ran through on the last screen, and also engaging on policies to more broadly facilitate the transition to an electricity system that is secure, clean, resilient, smart, and affordable. So with the Advanced Energy Buyers Group, we are engaged on a number of state and federal issues, and I'm just going to run through a couple of them today, one being a renewable energy tariff in Virginia, and then also the recently proposed Department of Energy grid resilience rule. So on the next slide, you'll see this is my list of favorites just in the state of Virginia. We do a lot of work in Virginia, so I have a number of different dockets that I'm following. So when I'm sort of looking to catch up on what happening in this one particular docket. I can go to my favorites and click on it. This is a proposed renewable energy tariff that was introduced by Dominion in May, and AWE is actually an intervener in this case. And the hearing is coming up on Monday. So it's very top of mind for me right now, this particular case. But over the past couple months, we've been working on this basically since it came out in May. There's not always a lot going on, but I can keep track pretty easily if you go to the next slide on what's happening based on my daily email that I get. So on this particular day, I had 3 different dockets that I was following that got updated, one in Arizona, one in Michigan, and then this one in Virginia. And on this particular day, I was able to basically say that I don't need to click on this one because I don't really care about an agreement to adhere to a protective ruling. It's not really a relevant filing for me, and nothing I need to act on. So instead of having to sort of constantly be keeping track of everything that's happening, I just can very easily know that anything relevant is coming straight to me and make a decision right from my email whether I need to take any action or do anything else. Moving on to the next slide. Coming up on the hearing, however, there is a lot of work that needs to be done preparing for direct testimony and cross-examination and everything else that goes along with that. And this is another place where being able to, having a searchable tool makes it much easier to be able to go through, and there's often a lot of filings in these kinds of cases, and so being able to do some more targeted review and analysis of what others are saying in the case is incredibly valuable. So in this example, I've actually just searched my own name to see where in this testimony my testimony has been referenced, and I can use that as a starting point to dig into which issues I want to address. Saves a lot of time for me to be able to actually search through not only what's been filed, but also within the filings, what's being said. So that is one example. Moving on to the next slide, just really quickly going to run through the recently proposed Department of Energy grid resilience rule, which currently is before FERC. So we do also track every state, but also at the federal level, track things that are happening at FERC. This proposal from DOE is something that would affect how both coal and nuclear plants are regulated in wholesale markets. Essentially would give those resources regulatory support for their generation. And the Advanced Energy Buyers Group weighed in with comments on this case opposing DOE's proposal, both because it would raise costs and also because it would disrupt the integration of renewable energy, which these customers care a great deal about. So we submitted comments. It was a very quick comment period, and as you'll see, if you look in the third column, there's over 1,000 filings in this docket. It received a lot of attention, and it also has been on a very accelerated time frame. So there was about a week between, just over a week between the filing of comments and the filing of reply comments in the case. So if you go to the next slide. Oh, I thought there was going to be another slide in there. That's my bad. Essentially, to make it easier to submit reply comments, using again that search function, and I apologize, I don't have a screenshot of it, but I think you can imagine from my previous slide, you're able to go through and decide, okay, I know I don't care about every filing in this case. I don't care about all the individual filings that are, form letters from Sierra Club members or anything like that. What I want to know is, what did all of the regional transmission organizations say in this case? What did the North American Energy Regulatory Commission say in this case. I know the key parties whose comments I want to pay attention to and read in submitting reply comments. And I might know some key terms that I want to pay attention to, see where those were brought up in other filings. So this enables you, without reading or scanning through all 1,103 filings, to just sort of target that research when you only have a week and a half to not only review all the filings, but then also write a response to them. So just two quick examples of sort of day-to-day how AEE internally uses this tool for our work, I think hopefully is applicable to how others might use the tool, and sort of really speaks to why AEE created it in the first place. And that, I think, is it from me. Again, any questions can go into the chat box, and I will pass it on to my colleague Daniel to run through an example in Pennsylvania.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Daniel Bloom. I'm a state policy associate at Advanced Energy Economy. And I wanted to just shine a light really quickly on opportunities to collaborate, not just in Pennsylvania, but elsewhere, as we look at the actual policies that states are developing within the space of clean energy and energy efficiency, and why that should matter to not just a group like Second Nature, which obviously is doing good work in this area, but also to all the universities and colleges that are signatories and are very climate conscious moving forward. So at the beginning of this year, I had the pleasure to reach out to Steve Muzzy and Tim Carter at Second Nature and shine a light on a piece of legislation that was moving in Pennsylvania that would remove a key tool for that state to mitigate not just carbon emissions, but overall greenhouse gas emissions in the state of Pennsylvania. For the past couple of years, AEE has been tracking Senate Bill 805 in Pennsylvania, legislation that would allow the largest commercial and industrial energy users in the state to act out of a state law known as Act 129, which authorizes utilities to offer energy efficiency programs across the residential, commercial, and industrial sectors. Now, one could imagine that if you're introducing opt-out legislation, that targets the commercial and industrial energy users, you're targeting the largest energy users in the state, and so kind of as a natural correlation, you're targeting the folks that make the largest impact on mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. So earlier this year, we were expecting this bill to move at a furious pace because we had been opposing it the last 2 years. We were successful in blocking its implementation in 2016. And there was a co-sponsorship memo that was released in early March that signaled that this bill was going to move pretty quickly in the Pennsylvania legislative session. And so as one of the key opportunities to collaborate, I reached out to Second Nature, and universities and colleges are large energy users as well. And as Caitlin pointed out, they're oftentimes looking to procure more renewable energy to power the operations that power campuses. But beyond that, energy efficiency is one of the most important tools we have, and the cheapest unit of electricity compared to traditional forms of procurement. And so removing Act 129 energy efficiency programs and the users that consume the most electricity in the state would really have a deleterious effect on mitigating those emissions. So in collaboration with Second Nature, we were able to leverage a few university chancellors and presidents to write direct letters to their state senators about the importance of maintaining energy efficiency programs under Act 129. There was quite a bit of a lull between March and late October when we finally saw the new iteration of Senate Bill 805, which is pretty unusual for a co-sponsorship memo to be released, and then there to be a 6-month lull between when the actual standalone bill is released. And one of the things that Powersuite can do is really kind of help keep you updated, as my colleagues have pointed out, on when the bill actually drops and when it will be moving, so that you can measure whether or not you need to engage fully at the beginning of the year, or only when the standalone bill comes out. And so the situation we're facing now in Pennsylvania is, after that 6-month lull, the bill has finally been reintroduced. It takes aim at what it's taken aim at the last 2 years, namely the largest energy users in the state, and allows them to basically free ride off other folks that remain in these programs. And what we've seen in other states is, the industrial opt-out narrative, when it snowballs and becomes policy, leads to 70 to 80% of large commercial and industrial customers leaving these energy efficiency programs. And it doesn't take long after that for the policy as a whole to kind of cripple under the weight of all of those largest energy users leaving the programs. One of the things that we're going to be doing as we head into 2018 is trying to leverage the university and college community to get more active in Pennsylvania on this bill, because there are significant changes that have been rendered in this version of the legislation that weren't in the previous version. And among those, one of the things that utilities have to deal with as they comply with Act 129 targets under the law is if they miss those targets, there are penalties imposed on the utilities. And so the penalty structure under the current version is completely changed. And Powersuite provides those insights for folks that wish to monitor different pieces of legislation at the state level. So you can look at previous iterations of Senate Bill 805 that came out in 2015 and in 2016, and you could see that this version is categorically different than the previous 2 iterations, just based on going to Powersuite, favoriting the bill, and monitoring the progression through the legislature, and what's going on in terms of the discussion around the bill. There are 2 other elements that make this version of Senate Bill 805 unique. There is a ban currently in Pennsylvania on utilities being able to own their own third-party implementers, and so that ban is essentially done away with in this new version, which means the utilities are the ones that are implementing the programs directly instead of contracting with third parties to do so, which is typically a better way to measure and validate energy savings, with respect to these types of programs. And the final thing that this version does is it removes all the peak demand shaving programs and blocks the Public Utility Commission from implementing those programs in the future. And so this is when the unit of electricity is most expensive, and utilities are able to plan ahead with reasonable certainty, knowing when that unit of electricity is going to be most expensive, like on a hot summer day when factories are running industrial equipment at full capacity. And so they can plan ahead and reach out to that factory or that industrial customer and ask them to shift when they are actually consuming energy, which then lowers the cost of electricity for all ratepayers in the state of Pennsylvania. And so these programs have not only been wildly cost effective since they were implemented in 2009, saving ratepayers $6.5 billion, but they're also, as I had mentioned multiple times now, the best way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions without having any sort of significant shift in the sources of electricity that are used for generation. And the other thing I would note is that universities and colleges are classified as commercial or large energy users in Pennsylvania. So making sure that those campuses and the representatives from those campuses are aware that there's a small collection of industrial energy users that are looking to free ride off the other folks that stay within these programs is pretty significant. And we're able to see through the moderate collaboration that we've done thus far that getting university chancellors and presidents to weigh in on these policies really makes a difference, because State senators and state representatives care about their districts. And so when they're hearing from a large energy user like university in their district, their ears perk up. So I think that this is a really good example of how we can collaborate moving forward. And I look forward to being able to leverage the participation of Second Nature's signatories as we move into 2018, when the fight against Senate Bill 805 will intensify. Thank you.
So with that, I think that's.
I just wanted just really impressive presentation. The power of Powersuite is incredible, and you know, just a great overview of what the tool is, how it can be utilized, and the opportunities are boundless. You know, again, something that we all as citizens can be engaged in, and this is a way where we can you know, dig in and you know, hopefully galvanize and move policy in a direction that's better for all. So really, I want to thank you all. That was amazing, and you know, and did it right on time. So we have some time here left for some questions, and I just want to start with Alexa. Just interested if you could provide some examples of how individuals or organizations engage with Siple.
Sure. Hi. So one of the things that is most obvious is sort of walking people through the public comment process. And so particularly for folks who are coming from the research side of the energy sector, professors, students, et cetera, walking them through how to submit public comments is a part of what we do. And we actually offer at Duke sort of in-person seminars and in-person consultations for that, and then sort of are hoping to add as another resource and guides to our website as well. Another thing that we do is help people engage with opportunities for expert testimony, for serving on panels related to particular regulatory issues, and some other sort of local committees and things like that. So that's one example.
And is this focus? Are you national in scope, or does that engagement in those kind of workshops on how to comment publicly just isolate to North Carolina?
So it is, I will say, inadvertently local. We have the goal of being national, and we are happy to work with anyone at a national scale and a national audience. Right now, we've been primarily focused on North Carolina, just as Siple started to ramp up, and as we started to grow and sort of, as I mentioned, go through this sort of redesign process and how we're presenting our resources and information to the broader national audience.
Great, excellent. Want to shift over to Eric, and can you share a little more information on if an institution, higher ed institution, wants to use Powersuite, what would they do? How would that happen?
Yeah, so the most basic way is just to visit our website. You can get access right away. Longer term access depends a little bit on your specific needs. There are portions of our platform that are public and free to use forever. There are some portions, however, like the machine learning forecasting capabilities on legislation that are behind a paywall. But just reach out to us, send us a note, and we'd love to talk with you, hear about your particular use case, help you if we can. But definitely the first place to look is just going to powersuite.ae.net, and you can register and get access immediately.
Excellent. Very good. I don't have any other questions now, but I do know this webinar will have legs, and we will be promoting it widely as a recording, and want to be sure people are aware of Powersuite and its capacity. But before we sign off, do anyone Does anyone else have questions for each other?
No, I think I'm all good from this end. That was a really thorough presentation. So really exciting, guys. Really interesting work you're doing.
Yeah,
Thanks,
very
guys.
thorough.
I want to say thank you to Steve and the rest of your team at Second Nature for organizing this, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with you and you, Alexa, as well.
Great. Well,
Excellent.
thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign off.
All right, excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.